but
we go on a date, but we don't hold hands or we don't have any physical intimacy.
Correct,
it's just really just pure, just getting to know someone in a deeper level.
Yes.
To know if you're fit to, become a couple.
Hello and welcome to the Connect to Marriage podcast. I am Celine and I am your host for this episode. In each episode of the Connect to podcast, we'll be tackling questions that couples ask about marriage, communication and conflict, and so much more. We hope you will keep tuning in to learn with us as you grow closer, deeper and stronger in your marriage. Recent news pieces have highlighted that many young people are not focusing on dating and are instead choosing to prioritize their careers or other things. According to a study by the National Youth Council and Institute of Policy Studies, 2 in 5 young Singaporeans have never been in a relationship. One of the reasons cited is that some people find dating too stressful. Today we have 2 young people, Darren and Hosanna, in the studio with us, and they'll be sharing their thoughts on how to date well. Hopefully, we get to encourage some of the young ones out there who are wondering if they should date or not. Darren, Hosanna, welcome to Connect to Podcast Youth Edition. Tell us more about yourselves.
Hi, I'm Hosanna. I'm 26 this year. I'm currently studying psychology in SUSS.
I'm Darren. I'm a recent graduate from social work and now I'm working as a social worker.
Let's start from the beginning. How did you guys know you were ready for a relationship?
Wow, tough question. Okay, I think I have 2 things that I was looking at when I was seeing whether I was ready for a relationship. The first one was whether am I ready to commit to a relationship. Why I said that is because when I was younger, when I was in secondary school, in poly, and when I was in the army, I was very afraid of commitment. And so during those times, when I was thinking about going into a relationship, I realized that after uni, I grew to not become afraid of commitment and committing to a relationship. And that's why I was like, okay, sure, I think I'm ready for a relationship now.
So was there anything that changed that made you feel like you are ready to commit?
This relates to my second marker that makes me feel like I'm ready for a relationship. It was, will I feel that I'm a person who is a whole person? And what I mean by that is, whether am I a healthy person? Whether am I having good sense of self-identity, self-worth? Do I have a group of friends that I can hang out and confide in? And do I have goals in life that I'm working? To me, those are very good markers to whether I'm a whole person, because I feel that it's important for me to be able to answer those questions well, because I feel if I'm significantly lacking in those areas, then I feel it will impact how I behave in a relationship, how those areas may impact the relationship, or how those areas would become replaced by the relationship.
Yeah, that's a very good point, to make sure that you are a whole person before you bring yourself into another relationship. So what about you, Hosanna? How did you know you were ready for a relationship?
Actually, very similar. I think for a lot of, I don't know, maybe this is just for me, but for women, generally we struggle maybe with a little bit of self-identity, self-worth, where do we get our validation from? And so for a majority part of my teenage years, I did find that I was trying to seek validation in whether or not, I was in a relationship, or all my friends are getting into relationships. What about me? Is it I'm not desirable or something like that? And so that kind of mindset to me was very unhealthy, because then I'm getting my self-worth from someone else rather than from, maybe my own self-identity. And so the marker for me to show that I was ready for a relationship was that I was no longer actively desiring it, I desperately need a relationship, right? But it was more of if it comes, it comes. And to me, that was actually a marker that I'm ready for a relationship, because I'm not banking my whole self-worth on whether or not I am desired by someone else, that kind of situation. So that was kind of my thinking pattern at the time.
So it sounds like you were just a lot more confident in yourself before you decided, okay, I'm gonna go into a relationship. Okay, so in this day and age where there are situationships, do you see it as important to be clear about each other's intention from the get-go?
Definitely. I think it is so important to be clear about your expectations. I think one is to be clear about your own expectations. What are you expecting out of a relationship in general, right? That's number one. And then from there, if you start to realize that maybe your friendship or your relationship with someone is evolving, then knowing your own expectations, right? You would know when things are starting to cross the boundaries or cross the expectations of what a friend is and what a relationship is. And then that's when you should have a conversation like, hey, like, what is happening here? Like, because it seems to me that we're acting in a way that is beyond what I would expect of a friend, you know, and then that's when you can have the conversation. And if it turns out that the other person is not having the same expectation as you, then, you know, it's so important to then create that safe space and that boundary so that you don't confuse each other, because that's what situationships are, right? They're just confusing for everybody involved.
I agree with you. That definitely it will be important to clarify. I think situationship is a very unhealthy place to be in.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of insecurity and uncertainty within that type of relationship. And I have personally seen the impact of that insecurity and uncertainty among the people that I know. I really don't wish for people to be in that same position. Regarding clarifying the expectations, like, I'm very similar to Ho. I think it's very important to clarify it. Regarding whether it's on the get-go or not, I think it's similar to her also. Like, I think if you are interacting with the person you're interested in as friends, right, then perhaps you can still hold it off a little bit in clarifying it. But I think the moment you feel that the friendship has evolved, that you're interacting no longer as friends, but as couples, then it will be very important to clarify about where you guys are so that you will gain that security and the appropriate boundaries in that relationship.
So maybe if you don't mind, could you just share your own personal story on how you went from like knowing that you are friends to a couple so that people understand what it really means to move from a friendship to being a couple?
Yeah, okay, so yes, Ho and I were like 6 years friends.
Yeah, we were friends for 6 years.
Yeah, before we became a couple. How that happened was only towards the tail end of my uni. Then we realized that we are interested in one another and that we would like to get to know each other in a way that's not as a friend. So how that happened is that at first we were just study buddies, and then we were just like studying together constantly. And during that time, I was actually not looking for a relationship, but I'm open to one. And so while being in a study buddy with her, then I realized slowly that, oh, actually she has qualities that I really like and am interested in. And so it's like during that period as a study buddy, we were just interacting as friends. We were just talking normally as friends to an extent where I felt like, okay, if I want to know her more, I would need to ask her out, like to say that, okay, we are going to explore. And if she's interested, to explore the relationship.
Wow, so you really made your intentions very clear from the beginning. There was no guessing.
Yes, because I felt like there were questions that I couldn't ask as a friend. Which I felt like it was important for me to ask, go enter into like marriage or something like that. Yeah, and so I felt like, okay, it's important for me to see whether we want to explore further so that we can ask deeper questions to one another.
During that time when we were study buddies, I like to term it as sneaky exploring, where because we were friends, right? So we would ask a lot of general questions about relationships, like, oh, what's your view about this? Or what's your perspective on this?
Yes.
As just a way for us to understand each other better. Again, this comes back down to knowing what your own expectations are, right? So at this point, it was like kind of trying to test the waters a bit to see if we have similar thinking patterns for more serious and important stuff to us, right, as individuals. And then at certain points, we realized that, okay, there's no way we can continue to ask these questions without making our intention clear that I'm asking you this because I want to know if you're a good partner for me in the future. Yeah, so then when he asked, then,
Thankfully, she's okay. She wants to explore.
Yes, correct.
Wow, hear this from both of you. It's such a mature way to move into a relationship from friends. Actually, I rarely hear such mature conversations from the get-go.
I think part of it has to do with the fact that, one, we were very scared to risk our friendship. So we didn't want to do anything that would damage the friendship. To make sure that it's not damaging to the friendship, we have to make sure that we are clear, right? So that no one gets hurt inadvertently. And then the other thing is just, I think maybe it's also part of our training. Like for me, because I'm studying psychology and Darren's in social work, right? So for us, like, it's part of our training to be very clear in our communication with one another. So I think that was probably why it's not very common, but it is kind of natural for us in that sense.
So speaking of risking friendships, in each podcast, we address a frequently asked question that couples have about relationships. And today's question comes from a young lady. So the question goes, I like someone from my uni course, but am struggling to come clean about my feelings. I think the fear of rejection is very real, and I also don't wish to make things awkward between us if things don't work out and risk the friendship. So any advice?
Marriage is one of the most rewarding things in life. Yet, navigating marriage as newlyweds or an engaged couple can sometimes get overwhelming. Whether it's managing expectations of the in-laws, getting a good grasp of your family finances, or establishing good habits of communication and healthy conflict. Focus on the Family Singapore's marriage preparation program aims to help you build a solid foundation in the early years and prepare you for the adventure of your life. Visit family.org.sg/C2 Marriage Prep for more information today.
I mean, this is a very relatable feeling, especially because, this is from a young lady, right? I totally understand that. Like, I think during that time when we were, sneaky exploring, obviously I knew that I was starting to like him, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to share with him that I'm interested in him in that way. Also because I do think that there's a fear of rejection, and knowing past experiences, like even though I've never really confessed to someone before, I've seen my guy friends like basically cut friendship with the girl when the girl tells them how they feel, mostly because they don't know how to handle being around the girl without misleading her in any way, sort of thing. So they have good intentions, but the end result is hurtful, right? So I did have that fear, so I totally get it. Unfortunately, I did not take the risk at all. Like, I just didn't, right? But yeah, I mean, I'm very glad that Darren took the risk. So maybe he can share a bit more about what it feels like to have to take the risk. Yeah.
The risk is definitely scary. The fear is very real that you may be rejected about it. I sort of have a sensing that Ho likes me. But then, right, I was like, even though I have that sensing, I didn't feel like I wanted to be too confident about it. To just give that, maybe there's still this 1% chance that I'll be rejected by her. Yeah, so it's very real. And I think that comes with just confessing that you're taking a risk to advance the relationship further. But without this risk, you won't be able to advance the relationship in a healthy way that is required for a relationship. I think there's also that part on like that you don't wish to make things awkward between us, between like the two of you if things don't work out. I think to that, it's very real. It was something that I also thought of going into the relationship. And I know that Ho also thought about it going into the relationship. But actually, while I'm in the relationship, I don't think about that anymore. Yeah, so it's just something that you think about it before. I think it's just calculating the cost of entering into one. But I would say that there's a future possibility that you cannot control right now. Yeah, and so you just have to do what is best, what you know best, so that it might not lead to that.
That's such good advice. Actually, when I was thinking about this, things are awkward even if one person already knows that you kind of like them. The situation is already awkward.
Oh, that's true.
It's true.
Yeah, so whether or not you move forward, it's already awkward. So I don't know.
That's true. Actually, even when you move forward, it's still a bit awkward because you're like, okay, now what do I do? Because we're so comfortable being friends, right? So then you need to figure out your way as a couple, right? Because it's different from being friends. So no matter what, there's always going to be awkwardness, if you think about it.
That's true. Just choose which one you want.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so just a curious question. You mentioned that you were friends for 6 years. So actually, how long have you all been in a relationship already?
Dun, dun, dun.
Officially, we are around like 1.5 years in.
Yeah.
If you consider like us exploring, maybe it's around like almost reaching 2 years.
Yeah. The reason why there's an official and an unofficial is because we were very, very careful with our friendship, right? Because again, we didn't want to risk it. So when Darren had the conversation with me about how, we may want to explore a relationship, we had to make sure that we were really serious about us moving forward as a couple before we actually became a couple. So we had a period of just exploring. So essentially, our boundaries were the same as what friends would be. So like, we were basically two friends going out on slightly more romantic hangouts to get to know each other a bit better with the intention of finding out whether we want to proceed as a couple.
So your hangouts are group hangouts or?
No, it was just the two
one-to-one?
of us. So it was like slightly more romantic where we'll go to like nicer places and like have dinner and actually have like serious conversations, which is not something that you may normally have with your friends. So that's why it was like a one step higher than friends, but not yet a couple.
So just as going on a date.
Correct.
Yeah,
but
we go on a date, but
yes.
we don't hold hands
Yes,
or we don't
there's
have
no,
like any
like-
physical intimacy.
correct, yes.
It's just really just pure, just getting to know someone in a deeper level.
Yes.
To know if you're fit to, become a couple.
Correct. Because at the same time, we were like also going in with our eyes open, knowing that, hey, this may not actually evolve into a relationship. So we wanted to make sure that our friendship was still protected and not like if we crossed too many boundaries during that time, then it'd be hard for us to go back to being friends.
Yeah. So that was our way of like trying to mitigate that risk and trying to explore
Yes.
a relationship or being in a relationship.
Thank you, Hosanna and Darren, for sharing with us your dating experience. I'm encouraged by you guys, and I've really picked up drawing boundaries actually, even so early on, before even being in a relationship. I'm really very impressed by your maturity going into the relationship. And both of you are like 26, so when you
Yes.
started, you were like 24. So that's really very impressive. In each podcast, we end off with a couple challenge for couples to do and share with each other. So if you are listening to this with your partner, share one area in your relationship that is going well and one area you wish to work on. For those of you who have been dating for some time and are looking to tie the knot, do check out our Connect to Marriage Prep workshop coming up in January 2025. For more details, check out www.family.org.sg/C2MarriagePrep. We hope you found today's episode helpful and encouraging. Please share this podcast with a friend who might also benefit from it. If you'd like to find out more marriage resources, you can go to family.org.sg for more details. Thank you for tuning in and remember to stay tuned for the next episode on Youth Edition.